Alright, you guys, real quick before the video does start, I want to give a shout out to Smart Epic Peoples. He's been pretty supportive of the channel lately, and he also asked for a shout out, so I thought why not be nice and give it to him. I forgot for the first few videos, but hey, here it is. Here's the shout out. Go ahead and make sure to check him out. His channel will be in the description below, and the air will probably be in the video for the first half. But with that being said, I hope you guys enjoy. Now let's get started. The Washington football team, as we all know, had a really good year compared to what they were how good they were expected to be. They only went 7-9, but that was enough to win the division, so hey, that's cool. And that was also a lot better than expected. This team has a really bright future, and today I wanted to talk about this team and what's next for them. But before we do get started, if you guys enjoyed today's video, make sure you hit that like button, as it really helps out the channel and it shows your support for this content. Subscribe if you guys are new, and enjoy the videos on here so you don't miss out on any new videos. And we are also on the road to 500 subscribers, and it would mean a lot to me if we could reach that goal. As a special, I will react to my first 2 videos ever, so if you guys want to see that and enjoy the content on here, make sure to subscribe. But now, with that being said, let's get started. And let's open up the video by talking about Washington's roster. And Alex Smith is the very first player I want to talk about. And while the guy did not play a full season, well, in the 6 games in which he did start, he passed for 1,582 yards, 6 touchdowns, but he also did toss 8 interceptions, and he completed 67% of his passes. He's a pretty solid veteran quarterback who provides leadership and experience on this team. Along with that, he's also a pretty solid player, and who knows what his future will be with the team, whether he's a starter or a backup, but I could definitely see the guy being the quarterback of this team for like the next year or so. Taylor Heinicke is the next player I want to talk about, and the guy, even though we have a very limited sample size of like how much he did play this year, he was really good in those games as he passed for 443 yards, 2 touchdowns, completing 60% of his passes, and he also had 68 rushing yards and a 1 rushing touchdown. He recently got extended by the football team, and if you ask me, if he keeps up this type of play, I think this guy might be the franchise quarterback for the time being. Up next, I want to talk about Antonio Gibson. Antonio Gibson had a really good and productive year with Washington, as he had 795 rushing yards, 11 rushing touchdowns, averaging 5 yards a carry, and he also had 247 receiving yards. Terry McLaurin is the next player I want to talk about, and what can I say about Terry? I mean, he just continued his absolutely stellar play. The guy is one of the best receivers in the NFL, and this past season, he had 1,118 receiving yards, 4 receiving touchdowns, and he caught 65% of his targets. Cam Sims is the next player I want to talk about, and Cam Sims, he is far from like Terry McLaurin's level, but he is still a pretty decent and productive receiver, as he had 477 receiving yards, 1 receiving touchdown, and he also had caught 67% of his targets. Up next, I want to talk about Logan Thomas. Logan Thomas, I mean, he was a very good, I guess, feel-good type of player for this team, as the guy was a journeyman for a majority of his career. But if you ask me, he might have found his home in Washington, as he was a really productive player for them, with 170 receiving yards, 6 receiving touchdowns, and he caught 65.5% of his targets. Moving on to the defensive side of the ball, I want to talk about Chase Young. And Chase Young, he was the defensive rookie of the year and had a really good rookie year. And while his numbers weren't eye-popping, he was a really good player, as he was a good pass rusher and a good run stopper. Along with that, he was also pretty decent as a leader, as I believe he was named a team captain for them. Anyways, this past season, he had 7.5 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, 4 passes defended, and 24 pressures. Daron Payne is the next player I want to talk about, and Daron Payne was a pretty good player for them, and while he was not like an elite player, he was a pretty good run stopper and a decent pass rusher, as he had 3 sacks, 3 forced fumbles, and 17 pressures for them. And Montez Sweat is the next player I want to talk about, and Montez Sweat, he had a really good year, and he was a good run stopper and a really good pass rusher for Washington, as he had 9 sacks, 4 forced fumbles, 6 passes defended, and 31 pressures. Kendall Fuller is the next player I want to talk about, and Kendall Fuller was not elite this year, but he had a really good and underrated season for the football team. And while the front 7 gets a lot of love, I mean, he definitely deserves a lot of credit for Washington's amazing defense, as he had 4 interceptions and 11 passes defended. Ronald Darby is the next player I want to talk about. And Ronald Darby also contributed decently to this team. As well, he had no interceptions, he had 16 passes defended, and when targeted, his completion percentage, well, against him, was not that high. And the final player I want to talk about is Kamren Curl. And Kamren Curl, I mean, he is a fan favorite of this team. And he actually had a pretty decent year with 3 interceptions and 4 passes defended. And when targeted, he did not exactly allow a very high completion percentage. And that is all I'm going to say for the roster. Now, the football team, it's clear they got a really good defense, and their offense, it's fine, but could definitely use some work. Ron Rivera, I want to talk about him for a little bit, and Ron Rivera was just an amazing hire for this team. He really helped boost the defense and take it to another level, and just, really help the team, as the guy is pretty decent at X's and O's and stuff like that. But most importantly, the guy built a really good culture in DC, and really just helped turn around the culture, I guess you could say, in Washington, as previously they were a really depressing and toxic franchise. And I mean, this offseason, in the 2020 offseason, there was a ton of stuff being exposed about Dan Snyder. And while Dan Snyder, while he is still trash, the guy, I mean, his name hasn't been in the headlines for the wrong reasons as much. And I mean, Ron Rivera has just been amazing for this team in the X's and O department, and also building a good culture. Now, Washington, all teams have weaknesses, okay? And Washington is not an exception to that rule. Offensively, they could definitely improve, as I said before. Their quarterback situation, it's kind of weird. They might view Taylor Heinicke as a franchise quarterback, and if you ask me, I mean, I would be opposed to having Taylor Heinicke start. And while they did make the playoffs and win the division, they will miss out on, they'll most likely miss out on the desired first round quarterbacks like Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Trey Lance, etc., unless they were to trade up, and I don't know if they will trade up. And if you ask me, I would not be opposed to sticking with this. Now, maybe you do trade for someone like Deshaun Watson, and my opinion on that is, I mean, if you do have the assets and you aren't going to give up way too much, then maybe you do get Deshaun Watson. But you will definitely have to build a pretty good team around him. And maybe you also could get someone like Gardner Minshew, if you ask me, he might be a franchise quarterback. It's just that Jacksonville's not going to be the place, as, well, they want Trevor Lawrence, all right? I mean, I'm sure they love Gardner Minshew, but I mean, you can easily tell they want Trevor Lawrence. Now, Washington is going to also have $43 million in cap space, and that is a good amount. And they will have to bring back key free agents, obviously, and they will also improve their team. And if you ask me, that is definitely a good amount to do both. Brendan Scherff is a guy you really want to bring back, okay? The guy is one of the best guards in the NFL. Ryan Kerrigan, maybe you bring him back, maybe you don't. I mean, the front 7 should be okay without him, as they were still pretty good, even though he hardly played this year. So if you ask me, I could see them bringing him back. Then I could also see them not bringing him back. Besides that, they should be pretty good when it comes to bringing guys back, but they should all definitely aim to improve the linebacking core, as that is really just their only weakness defensively. The secondary could be stronger, but I mean, that is really their only glaring weakness, and they definitely should improve the receiving core, as they do need a good number 2 receiver next to Scary Terry. Now, some free agent targets, like guys I would target in free agency, could be someone like Corey Davis, Allen Robinson, Chris Godwin, T.Y. Hilton, Will Fuller, Curtis Samuel, and Marvin Jones to all improve the receiving core. I mean, I would definitely go after those guys. You obviously won't get all of them, but if they were to get someone like Corey Davis or Curtis Samuel or Marvin Jones, that would not be bad at all. Now, to improve the defensive side, as I was saying before, Leonard Floyd, Bud Dupree, Shaq Barrett, and Denzel Perryman would all be pretty good options for this team. Shaq Barrett, I don't know if they will get him. I mean, that was just a name I decided to throw out because maybe it's possible they can land him, but I seriously doubt it. But someone like Leonard Floyd would be really good for this team, as he had a great season for the Rams. And I mean, really in free agency, I'd try and improve the linebacking core and the receiving core. Not only that, but they will own the 19th pick in this year's draft, and they could also use that to help build on their team. Maybe they trade up to try and get a quarterback, but I could also see them try and select a guy like in the second round, or they could just stay at 19 and pick some guy. Now, maybe they decide to draft someone like Mac Jones because they want to, have a quarterback battle between Taylor Heineke and Mac Jones, or if they want to improve the receiving core, Kadarius Toney wouldn't be bad. Nick Bolton is also a pretty decent linebacker from what I've heard, so maybe they decided to select him. And in the second, or not in the second round, Jeremiah Owusu-Koroma, hopefully I said that right. If he's available, maybe they take him. And in the second round, like later on, they could take someone like Terrence Marshall Jr. And if you ask me, to really wrap up this video, if Washington makes the proper improvements, I think they can take another large step to the point where they are a legitimately good team that could definitely make some noise in the playoffs, rather than just being a team that made it into the playoffs because of a weak division. No offense, but if they make the proper improvements, this team could be really scary and could give them and the Dallas Cowboys, like a healthy Dallas Cowboys team, they'll really be competing for the NFC East. But with that being said, that will be the end of today's video. If you guys enjoyed, make sure you hit that like button, as it really helps out the channel and it shows your support for this content. Subscribe if you guys are new and enjoy the videos on here so you don't miss out on any new vids. And we're also on the road to 500 subscribers, and as a special, I will react to my first 2 videos ever. So if you guys want to see that and enjoy the content on here, make sure to subscribe. But anyways, with that being said, I'm out, you guys.